Okay, this is Our Family History, Part 1. My dear Jacqueline Hope Florez, this video is for you. Today is July 12th, and I'm walking on the Waibaidu Bridge, built about 1907. It's another hot summer in Shanghai. I spent a lot of time researching our family history and went back as far as the 1500s. But before that, with help from your grandmother, we were able to find out that we did have some distant relatives in Spain and some in Basque Spain. I did my best to give you an idea of where I came from and where my side of the family came from, which are your ancestors. So I hope you enjoy this. So let's watch a 2-minute video here that explains the history a little bit better than I can. Enjoy.
Basque origins, DNA, language, and identity. From the Spanish and French valleys of the Western Pyrenees to the Atlantic coast of the Bay of Biscay, the historically isolated Basque people have lived for millennia. In this diverse and fertile region, the Basque have retained their unique non-Indo-European language and dialects, Euskara, as well as their own cultural and regional identities. As the surrounding populations of Europe have shifted over the ages again and again, the Basque people remain. Known today by its inhabitants as Euskadi, País Vasco, or Euskal Herria, the Basque Country has become a region famous for its cuisine and wine of ancient grapes such as Tempranillo, of traditional fishing villages and picturesque cities. Tourism has replaced much of history's strife. But defining Euskal Herria is as difficult as defining the word Herria itself. In Euskara, its root heri can mean everything from village to population to nation. Euskal Herria is the collective identity of this ancient people. Prehistoric Basque Country. The Franco-Cantabrian region was an oasis of life during the last glacial maximum, one of the most densely populated glacial refugia in Europe. Yet this land is dense not only in flora and fauna, but history itself. Basque Country has been the setting of countless significant historical events from prehistory to the present day, and the home of crucial archaeological discoveries, including Neolithic dolmens and burial sites, and, famously, the oldest known European cave paintings, such as the depictions of Paleolithic megafauna in the caves of Lascaux.
All right, I'm on the Zhejiang Bridge right now. It's a pretty cool bridge here. I think it was built around 1907 or 1908. Anyway, the more I started researching, I started learning more about the Basque people. They were well known as seafarers and the first commercial whalers in Europe. Basque fishermen and sailors probably reached the American waters well before Christopher Columbus in 1492, and making them the first Europeans to reach the Americas. So let's go ahead and watch a little video that explains these people a lot better than me.
In 1613, the Dutch sent out 3 ships to hunt whales near Spitsbergen. On these ships were 12 or 13 Basque harpooners. The Basques were the first commercial whalers in Europe. The first mention of commercial Basque whaling comes from the year 670 AD, and they were already sending whaling expeditions to Labrador and Newfoundland in the first half of the 16th century. And from about 1540, these expeditions were no longer experimental, but commercially viable. And in the second half of the 16th century, the Basques were selling large amounts of whale oil in England and Flanders. And that's how the renown of Basque whalers grew in Europe. The Basques used large transport ships for their whaling expeditions. One of these ships, the San Juan, which sank in Red Bay, Canada, has been found. But the Basques didn't hunt from these ships. They mostly hunted from land-based whaling stations. And to actually hunt the whales, they used smaller, more maneuverable, quicker vessels called chalupe, which could either be rowed or sailed. In 1611, Basque harpooners were contracted by the English to teach them how to hunt whales. The Dutch and the French did the same in 1613, and the Danes followed in 1617. Mostly because of the competition between the English and Dutch whalers, the Basques were no longer allowed to hunt near Spitsbergen. This and the competition with other whaling nations meant the beginning of the end of the golden age of Basque whaling.
Okay, right now I'm standing in front of an old Japanese Shinto temple built around 1922. And back to our family history. This is all very interesting to me, and I hope one day it's going to be interesting for you too. Now, I could give you a basic history lesson about the Europeans and the Spanish conquistadors traveling to the Americas and converting the Native Americans to Christianity, but I found this 4-minute video that explains it very well. So, enjoy.
European exploration and the colonization of the Americas was mainly fueled by the necessity for resources and wealth. The Orient, also known as the East, with exotic products such as pottery, silk, and species, soon became a magnet to European traders. The trading route via the Silk Road, however, was under threat by the middle of the 15th century due to the rise in the power of the Ottoman Turks and the impairment of the Mongol Empire. At the same time, the development in shipbuilding and navigation made it possible for longer and further to travel. This helped to secure the trading route with Asia, and unexpectedly led to the exploration of a new land, which is later known as the Americas. European discovery of the Americas. In 1492, while on expeditions to find new trade routes from Europe to Asia, Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer, accidentally discovered a new world that possessed all the natural wealth which the Europeans sought so eagerly. This new world, or later known as the Americas, is the continents of the Western Hemisphere, including North America, which covers Central America and the Caribbean islands, and South America. Before the arrival of European explorers, the Americas were home to tens of millions of native peoples that are now known collectively as American Indians or Native Americans. With great deposits of gold and other minerals, as well as vast plains, valleys, and mountains, this new land was viewed by the Europeans as an enormous wilderness area with great economic potential, and thus became the land of dreams for those who were longing for resources and wealth. This period of exploration and discovery soon became an international race of major European powers, Spain, France, and England, to increase their wealth and establish colonies around the world. Spanish Empire in the Americas. The first European country to conquer and colonize the New World was Spain. By 1512, the larger Caribbean islands were occupied by the Spanish, with the first Spanish town established on the island of Hispaniola, and Santo Domingo becoming the first capital of Spain's New World possessions. Other areas then settled by the Spanish were Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Jamaica. Spanish conquistadors then sailed from the island harbors to explore the coasts and penetrate the continents. In 1519 to 1521, they conquered the Aztec Empire in Mexico, and a few years later took control of the Inca Empire and Peru. After growing rich from vast deposits of gold and silver in Mexico and Peru, Spain organized further expeditions to the surrounding areas, and soon settled most of Central America and South America, except for Brazil, which was colonized by the Portuguese. Other conquistadors ventured north into the southern parts of what is now the United States. In 1562, northern Florida was settled by a group of French Protestants, Huguenots, forcing the Spanish to launch an expedition led by the explorer Pedro Menendez de Aviles in 1565. Most of the French colonists were killed, and a Spanish fort was built on the site of what is now St. Augustine. Later, in the 16th century, Spain began colonizing the region north of Mexico. In 1598, a group of Spanish settlers arrived in the New Mexico-Arizona area, and the city of Santa Fe was founded in 1610. During the 1700s, Spain managed to colonize other outposts in North America, Texas and California. After all, Spain possessed the largest land area of the colonial empires in the New World, including several islands in the West Indies, all of Mexico, most of Central America, most of South America, and what are now Florida, California, and the US Southwest.
Okay, I'm standing in front of an old Spanish villa built sometime around the 1920s, deep in the heart of the French concession. I don't have many details on it now, but I'll have to get back to you on that one later. So, back to our Florez family history. It must have been very difficult to travel across the Atlantic to the Americas during that time. Can you imagine a 16 to 20 hour boat trip? Your father has traveled to most all of these territories that the Spain did attempt to colonize. But the furthest south I made it to was Mexico. I never made it to South America. Now, for some details about the Basques. They do have distinct physiological traits. Of all European peoples, Basques have the highest rate of blood type O and the lowest incidence of blood type B. They also have the highest rate in the world of Rh negative blood factor. My blood type is O positive. By the end of the 16th century, Basques were conspicuously present in America. Notably in New Spain, which is now known as Mexico, in the province of Nueva Vizcaya, now Durango and Chihuahua, Chile and Bolivia. It seems they formed by a melting pot of Spanish colonists and Native Americans from 1620 to 1625. Alright, Princess, this concludes part 1 of the Florez family history. And I'll work on part 2 later. I hope you enjoy this.